Welcome to the Personal Success Podcast Studio. In a world obsessed with speed, efficiency, and constant optimization, one question matters more than ever. What does it actually mean to be human? In this episode of the podcast, I sit down with Dr. Alfredo Borodowski for a powerful conversation on leadership, purpose, positive psychology, and the real opportunity hidden inside the rise of AI. While most people are talking or asking about how technology will change the future of work, Dr. Borodowski invites us into a deeper question. How will it change the value of being fully human? We explore why talent alone is not enough, why character strengths matter more now than ever, how purpose shapes culture, and why leaders and organizations that thrive in the years ahead will be the ones that invest in humanity, not just efficiency. This conversation is thoughtful, timely, and deeply relevant for anyone who wants to lead with more clarity, build more resilient teams, and stay rooted in what is real as the world changes around us. If you've ever felt the tension between progress and meaning, technology and humanity, or performance and purpose, this episode's for you. All right, Dr. Borodowski, thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Ryan.
Who is Dr. Borodowski and what is his mission?
Well, mission, people ask me, I say, I am an optometrist of corporations. That's actually, I love to say that because what I try to do, my mission is to open the eye of organization and people in the organization to know their top 5 strengths of positive psychology. Positive psychology has 24 strengths. If you know your top 5, you have the chance of increasing your potential or actualizing your potential 9 times. You know them. And you apply them 18 times. And we know that 70% of people do not know the top 5 strengths of positive psychology. Then that's my mission. If every day, Ryan, I get one person to know what their strengths are, mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's a great mission. I have a degree in psychology. I have taken strengths, finders, all kinds of those. And I'm thinking, man, what is my, what are my top 5 strengths? They're sort of like escaping me right now. So even people who are sort of in this field, I think sometimes we talk about it so much, we lose sight of it for ourselves even. I'm like, I don't know what my top 5 strengths might be. So I'm like, well, I hope he doesn't ask me that.
We're not going to tell everybody, by the way, who's listening, how to get them. But let me clarify something from, people, when I tell people I work with strengths, which is one of the things I do, they immediately tell me we've done that. Because we have taken the Strength Finder, Pathfinder, or what used to be known as the Gallup, strength. This is something different, very different. The Strength Finder is about talent. What do you do well? Which is very important to know what your talents are. The strengths of positive psychology are called character strengths, which, for example, humility, love of learning, curiosity, forgiveness, humor, leadership, spirituality. They are not about talent. They are about who you are at your best as a person in your life and professionally. It's about the whole person. And if you ask me what the crisis today is, it's not the crisis of talent. We have a lot of talent. Then when companies and leaders invest on talent, they actually going in the wrong direction, because the crisis today is not of talent. The crisis I see and people tell me about is about loyalty, motivation, resilience, optimism, all connected and related to core character strengths, not to talent. And one of the things I do, I review hiring procedures. And if you look at the questions that people use for hiring are mostly based on talent. What you did best, tell me a success story, tell me a failure story. And then they regret it because they hire a great, talented person, but the wrong person as a person.
Yeah. When did you sort of have this awareness that this was happening? Was it just sort of, because it seems sort of obvious, even in my time in corporate America and whatnot, there was sort of a gap that I couldn't quite name that was happening between the interview process and the sort of outcome. And I never could put my finger on it. It seems like you might have. How'd you come to this realization?
Because when they call me to corporations or leaders call me, they never call me about talent. They always call me about lack of motivation. They told me, about toxicity.
Sure.
In the team. They told me about lack of communication. Look, the usual questions of consulting. Look, talent can be fixed with training, and usually training is very effective. Go to, a 2-day training seminar, and people usually come with more knowledge. But the problems of the team, the lack of motivation, absenteeism, they persist. No matter how much update on talent you bring are the human issues with sometimes HR tries to solve with another 2-day seminar or bringing a consultant for a workshop, and they don't go away. And they don't go away because they don't tackle the most fundamental issue, which is the issue of two issues. The strength, people do not know the strength, and they don't know purpose. These are the two issues I tackle first, no matter what you bring me for. You don't know your character strength, and the people don't know each other's character strength. They don't have a joint purpose. No matter the talent you have, you will suffer.
Dr. Borodowski, what does it look like for you to help people find their strengths in a company, as you spoke of?
Well, for me, it's my purpose.
Yeah.
And bring fulfillment. Then I told you, if I go to a company, at that moment, that people discover their top strength and they begin a different, you can see it in their eyes, energized, motivated. Yeah. And when I work with individuals one-on-one and I give them the results of the top strength, I hear always a comment like, wow, that's me. I feel validated. I feel energized. I feel authentic. Yeah. Okay. That's what happens when you look at your top 5 strengths and you own them.
Yeah. Your work combines positive psychology, as you said, purpose and leadership strategy. And there's sort of 5 things that I sort of was able to sort of diffuse from your website. And the first was turn certainty into confident action. How do you do this?
Well, it's interesting. My next book is coming in a few months. The title is The Human Upgrade, Finding the new leadership for the AI era. It is being published by Maxwell House, John Maxwell.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was looking at yesterday that I wrote is that leaders were usually expected to predict. A good leader was somebody who predicted and was ahead of the curve. And you guessed well and you read the data well and were able to make decisions ahead of other leaders, then you were successful. That model is not working anymore, Ryan, because change today doesn't happen. Change is the game. With the pace of innovation, go and predict. It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Then combating uncertainty with prediction is very difficult. What I suggest is combating disorientation with guidance.
Yeah, that's such a different model. I think back to just as recently as 2015, school, getting my MBA. One of the things that we did in this financial literacy class is he had us, take a company from 2008 and sort of make different decisions about what was going to happen. And I remember thinking, how do they get enough data to make the right decisions? And I walked right into the question. And he's like, you don't ever have enough data to make the right decisions. That's the point of everything. And I was like, wow, but you're right. Things are changing so quickly now. And I think as you're walking into AI, you have to just be okay in uncertainty. And that's a hard thing to describe, let alone learn how to sort of navigate through.
Exactly. But if uncertainty is here to stay.
Yes.
Okay. Then what do you offer as a leader? And what you offer is orientation in times of disorientation. And orientation, not to overemphasize it, comes by giving people strengths. Uncertainty is basically combated with strength and working on purpose. Purpose is one of the most misunderstood terms, and there are 2 usual ways to see it. One is to place purpose at the end. The purpose of something is its objective.
Yeah.
And the other is to define purpose as the reason or the why you are doing something. It's interesting. Purpose could either be placed at the very beginning or as the result of something. And I tell you, leaders choosing one or the other will come to absolutely 2 kinds of cultures in the company. Opposite cultures.
Yeah.
Leaders who place purpose at the end will have a very anxious company with people basically all the time feeling under pressure, getting to objectives and never being satisfied because purpose is always finding the next one. People who place purpose at the beginning as the reason to be and the why, instead of getting to success, they get to fulfillment. And those companies, you see a difference in which people come to work every day knowing why they come, and they can go through uncertainty because the reason to be there always is stronger than the particular ups and downs of the moment.
Yeah.
The most important thing I work on purpose is where you place purpose, at the beginning or the end of your paradigm.
I've not thought of it that way, but you're right. And I can see how I've done that. I can see how other leaders that I've seen have done that, and how it confuses those that they're supposed to be leading, right? And so there's a lot there. And one of the other things that you do in your work is transform toxic cultures into high engagement environments. And this question seems relevant here in our conversation. Where do you focus to make this transformation?
So let me give an example. I was working with a company, a very toxic environment. Then I gave them the VIA, the values in action, which is the standard and more valid and reliable instrument for mapping your character strengths. Then all of them was a team of 10 people. They took it, and I saw that 90% of them had honesty among the top 3 strengths. There was an extremely honest team.
Yeah.
Then I asked them to simulate the meeting they usually had Monday mornings, which they told me was a difficult meeting and, full of infights and things like that. They simulated the meeting. And what I saw is that the problem was that they were all very high on honesty. What that meant, Ryan, they didn't know how to filter the way they communicate with each other.
Yeah.
They were all very direct, to the point, no anesthesia in what they were saying. Then what happened there? They were overusing the character strengths of honesty because they felt most themselves, more energized and authentic. Then what do we work with? We work with communication skills, how to be honest without being abrasive.
Yeah.
And, and the CEO told me the entire culture changed. And what is interesting wasn't 6 months, a year of usually consulting, those long consulting contracts that never end. No, once people understood that honesty was the top strength and communication was the problem, and we began working immediately on strategies or applying honesty with balance, the results were immediate.
So you focus on their strengths right from the start.
Yes.
You start there. Yeah.
Anything I do, right? Whatever reason you bring me to a company, I will always begin with strengths, because people cannot be at the best without knowing how good they are.
I'm doing this in real time as we're talking, but there's one of the wisest things I've heard on people I interviewed. I interviewed an executive coach, and he said, the buzz the past couple of years has been workplace culture. And he goes, here's the paradox. So he goes, you don't fix the culture by focusing on the culture. You focus on the meaning of their work. And that seems to at least be sort of adjacent with what you're saying here. How does that help me deepen my understanding here a little bit? Where does that, because we talked about purpose, we talked about, focusing on the strengths, how do you draw a parallel between my understanding and what you just said?
Then what is purpose? Let's define it.
Yeah.
Because it's very elusive. Purpose in the paradigm I use, and my guides on this are Gabriel and Brian Bosch, who are the founders of what is called the Purpose Company.
I want to share something personal with you. I worked with Steve Lang and his Aura AI agency. That's AURA. That experience gave me a level of clarity I didn't realize I was missing. Steve has an ability to listen and reflect back what's actually there in a way that helps you see yourself clearly. What's changed most is my ability to speak about what I do with confidence and precision. If you're someone who knows you have something meaningful to offer, but you're not sure how to fully articulate it, I highly recommend working with Steve and Aura. It's been one of the most valuable investments I've made myself in my work. To learn more about Steve and his work, visit him on linkedin.com/Steve Lang, Aura AI Agency. That's linkedin.com/in/Steve Lang, Aura, AURA, AI Agency. The link is in the show notes.
Which are known to be on the top of purpose. That's all they do. And they define purpose as giving the best of yourself for the betterment of others. Okay? And that's the definition I use.
Yeah.
Once you come to work and doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter. You can work on the mail room, or you can work as an accountant, or you can work with directly with the customers. But if you come every day knowing that your company is giving the best of itself for the betterment of people, and a betterment of people could be a company that does vegan food, okay, and that's the best they can for people who want to be vegan to eat well and savor the food, or you make good tires for cars, and then you do the best you can for people to drive on the road safely. And it doesn't matter if you work on the mailroom, like I said, you contribute to that. Then once the purpose is clear, permeates the company, and the leader reinforces that on the email, on the messages, this is what we are here for, then the culture changes.
Yeah.
Then I agree with the executive you spoke. Culture is a ethereal term. Purpose is more, is more circumscribed. Purpose is much easier to define and to work with than culture. That's why I work specifically with purpose. And many times I ask executive or manager what's the purpose of the company, and they send me to the mission statement. That's a grave mistake. The mission statement is the end result.
Yeah.
I was working with a not-for-profit in Argentina, where I am from, last month in one of the provinces of Argentina, Cordoba. There was a non-for-profit, and then they brought me and they tell me, Alfredo, we've been working on purpose for the full last year. And they did it with an in-house person who wasn't a coach, somebody who worked with people but wasn't trained. And I looked the year they spent, they didn't do one purpose thing. The only thing they worked on was the mission. And the mission is the objective. The purpose is the reason. Okay, the mission is, like we said, is at the end of the journey.
That's a clear distinction. Yeah.
And then I was explaining that to the president, and he was saying to me, or the organization, or this foundation, so they, no. We work on purpose. We work on mission. And it took me a long coffee break with him.
Well said.
To explain the difference, and the mission is important. Clearly, they didn't waste their time.
Yeah.
Okay, you should have a mission. You have 4 things: purpose, mission, vision, and values. Okay, but they should not be confused.
Yeah, absolutely. As I look at your list here of those 5 things I distilled, it seems the most important one to me, and what I've found in my own personal exploration and what I'm finding in conversations, is this idea of leveraging human strengths is the ultimate competitive advantage. I actually am starting to come to a place where I believe that AI is going to it's going to heighten these. It's going to add more value to this human strength sort of orientation of looking at things. And the way I sort of came about that, I'll share a brief story with you. I was a musician for a lot of my life, and I came to the AI Suno, and I was goofing around. I started typing in my favorite types of music, and then my favorite sci-fi books. I love Frank Herbert and Dune, and it spit out this song that was like my favorite song for 2 months. I couldn't stop listening to it. And I sort of was on a bit of a crisis. I was like, oh my gosh, how can a machine just spit this out? And I would sit there and paint over songs. And I had to come to this realization. I was like, wait, it's actually, because there was a lyric that it made up in there. It was, I was a man. And I'm like, wait a second. No, you weren't. But it made me realize that it's not necessarily coming up with anything original. It's just a mirror of all the things it's sort of been trained on. And it's like I identified the 5 pieces of music that I like, and it just put those together. And I'm like, wow, this is my favorite song. But what it really gave value to, I think, after that experience was the songs that are written by people, how much I was able to connect with them more deeply because I connected with a song that wasn't made by a person. I don't know if you could tell me what I'm experiencing there.
No, that's an amazing. It's an amazing. I begin my book by telling the story. Listening to you, I am a musician too, by the way.
Yeah,
I play darbuka, which is an Egyptian percussion instrument. Then I begin my book by telling the story that last year I was in Arizona, and I took my first taxi without a driver.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
One of those. And it was very, very strange because you're not talking to anybody. I usually like to talk with the driver. There you're sitting by yourself. And then when we arrive to my place, I open the door. And before I close the door, I look inside and I said, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was saying thank you to nobody. The chapter is called Thank You to Nobody. And I was saying, look, I never said thank you to my GPS or thank you to my vending machine, but I felt I had to say thank you. And then I was pondering, are we going to get to a point in which we are going to be saying thank you to the thin air? Because the machines are going to do so many things for us that we are going to... Look, AI is a blessing. The paradox, which I love, is that as AI is taking more of what humans do, and we have seen only the tip of the iceberg about what this technology will do. But as AI takes more of what humans do, humanity is going to become a higher luxury.
Yeah.
It's a paradox.
It is a strange paradox, and I've heard many thought leaders sort of struggle to frame the AI revolution that we're in the midst of, right? And a common comparison I hear, which, and I've heard, I think on some of the podcasts I listened to that you were on, I've heard you use some of these sort of analogies, but, things like the printing press and the automobile, internet, or social media.
All wrong. I know where you're going. All wrong. Yeah. Look, let me explain you why it's all wrong, and this is on the first chapter of my book.
Please.
When somebody invented the arrow and killed the first person, I imagine that told his friend, look, we're going to kill everybody here. Didn't happen. When they invented the sword, the blade, they said the same thing didn't happen. When they invented the cannon and the tank and the airplane and any weapon, they thought that they had the capability and didn't happen until we split the atom. Then we go to a critical mass in which the promise of now we can destroy the world wasn't an illusion anymore, was a possibility.
Yeah.
The same thing with technology. When we invented the electricity, people said actually that was going to make people crazy. When we invented the TV, that we all were going to become idiots, that the industrial revolution was going to replace us, that the phone, the smartphone, we were not going to talk to each other again, and that Netflix is going to replace movie theaters.
Yeah.
All false until AI. AI is to technology was splitting the atom is two weapons. Why? Because all the technology that came before us was meant to replace our actions and do what we do better than we do. AI is about replacing who we are as humans, our creativity, our ingenuity, and even our feelings, when we are going to make robots that are going to love, tell you that they love you, cook what you need, live with you. We are moving in that direction. Then this, we are achieved a tipping point in which technology has crossed a line like nuclear weapons cross a line. Then the fear this time is granted. Then am I against it? No. We need to be careful. Okay? The same way that you can use nuclear energy to power a town, you can use nuclear energy to create weapons.
Yes.
But in all this dancing of technology and the human is going to become a higher value commodity. I hate to call it this way. Then the companies who are going to invest alongside technology on the human dimension are going to come on top of the company that only invest in technology. And that's what I tell leaders. Okay, what is going to distinguish one company from another when technology becomes available to everybody? The company that presents a better humanity and human touch in what they provide. And the companies who do not understand that, Microsoft understand that, and Google understand that, and Apple understand that, okay, and Amazon understand that. With all the negativity we can talk about them, they all are very careful about keeping the human touch very, very clear and present. Starbucks now realizes that they need to go back to what they call the third place, the place between home and work, and they are closing down the drive-through. Starbucks is basically closing the drive because why? They understand that they were not selling coffee. They were selling money. Look what happened to Cracker Barrel a month ago. They took, what's the name of the guy, the old guy, Henry,
I don't know. And I was
Herschel,
sort of, I tried to
Herschel.
follow that. It was sort of mystifying to me, but maybe you can explain
Then
it.
they took Herschel, I think his name, off the logo, and they lost $700 million in value in one day.
Wow.
Why? He was the human face of the company, the human touch.
Yeah.
That's a great case, by the way.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it sort of characterizes a lot of the importance of the change, of sort of what's happening here. And I think I wouldn't consider myself an early adopter, but I'm sort of to the right of the curve, if you will, And I remember when Starbucks had the mobile app where you could order ahead. First day I had that, I was using it. And then I was like, wait a second, I want to go in and talk to somebody. And probably about, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I stopped using it just so I could go in. And I guess part of what I was getting out of that was just an interaction with the barista, which seems like I'm willing to pay for that.
Ryan, we are going to go back to coffee places. We are going to go back to soiree places where people sit down, have a coffee, and discuss things. We are going to create an entire network of places that are going to offer a human connection.
Yeah, I think I could sort of hear. It's strange because if that's true, I sort of hear the world sort of calling for that. There's a need for human connection. There's a need for belonging. And you can see institutions, right or wrong, like the power of the Catholic Church is sort of is waned, at least in the US, I can say. And I say that from a community point of view. Less people are involved, and that's going to need to be there's a calling for that to be sort of replaced or something. I don't know.
Then I was commissioned, which I presented by the Rabbis Association of South America. The entire rabbinic, what is called the conservative movement, which is the progressive one, they commissioned me to write a book about the future of the postmodern soul.
Yeah.
Okay, an assessment of the soul. I am trained, by the way. I have a PhD in philosophy. Then I have a tendency to study sociology and philosophy, and then I wrote this book on an assessment of the postmodern soul and strategies to deal with that. And without getting into this topic, I know it's not our topic, religion has a tremendous opportunity in front of it, because if it does it well, it's a place of deep contact and community. Then I think that religion has a great opportunity. Let's see if we waste it, or that's what it's called to do. But there is a great opportunity. Yeah, like any other social,
I've been hearing a lot of chatter about, the AI revolution and whatnot. And I sort of have been, listening, but, I haven't got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to learn more of this. It's been sort of I've been a hobbyist with AI, with all different kinds of AI and things like that. And I've seen how it's benefit, and I can see how people misuse it and whatnot. But I read an article the other day talking about how the next 900 days, the economy and the jobs market is going to look completely different in this revolution. And I just wonder, what will that look like for the average middle-class person in the world?
Well, I tell you, I was on a podcast yesterday, and they asked me specifically what jobs should people be looking for. And besides the great wisdom of plumbers and electricians, that now is interesting how those certifications are being flooded with people that are leaving university to study jobs that, AI will not be able to do. It is very difficult to impossible to predict, like we talked before about which jobs are going to be out there. Out there. Clearly, the people who know how to operate AI are going to have AI jobs, but that's a limited amount of people. Look, I am a believer that humans are endlessly adaptable.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that we are going to come out of this stronger and wiser and more creative. Mm-hmm. The problem is that transition is going to be tremendously painful.
Yeah.
Tremendously painful. I can't exactly tell you how deep the pain will be, but will be painful. My job is, when I work with companies, to emphasize as much as possible the human dimension or the company that when they even have to make tough decisions, they do it humanly, carefully, and compassionately. Okay, that's the best I can do to retain and upgrade the human dimension of the company, and that companies, as they do what they need to do not lose the soul. Because without soul and purpose, even if they do all what they need to do, will fail. Ultimately,
I don't want to preach doom and gloom, because I certainly feel the same way that you do, that I think we're sort of endlessly adaptable. And I think that there's lots of evidence of that. But I think it's the most honest thing that I've heard anybody say, was you just say it's going to be very, very difficult. And I think that there's no way to predict it. I think it's just to really promote that adaptability idea, which is the philosophy I'm sort of taking on here. Because I'm trying to think. You can go on there, like, Google has the Notebook LM. You can make a podcast just by uploading a PDF document. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
If we're going to go through a transition of extreme pain, and at the same time we're going to be selfish and bad people, then it's going to be a catastrophe. If we are going to go through a deep transition, helping people make the transition, training them, respecting their humanity, doing things with care and compassion, it's going to be a different ballgame.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And I'm listening to you, and I'm sort of, I said I read that article, and I sort of felt called to start investigating more deeply. And I think I'm ending up somewhere in what you're saying, is that what I do is I do work as a coach now, helping people sort of with purpose and fulfillment and things like that. And I think that, like you said, just being a good person to the person you see on the street is now more important than it ever has been.
Yes.
In your upcoming book, The Human Upgrade, The New Resilient Leadership for Peak Performance in the AI Revolution, you argue that the AI upheaval can be used to build more adaptive, purposeful, and mentally strong organizations. Walk me through your thought process here. How is that an opportunity for that?
Yeah, the opportunity, like I said, because the human is going to become more valuable. Okay. Now, what we are seeing from studies is that as companies introduce the latest technology, the level of anxiety, uncertainty, and depression are going through the roof. They are inversely proportional. To more technology, deeper the depression. Okay.
Yeah.
Then, and the studies are the most serious studies. One done by Microsoft, one by Gallup, then will necessarily confront companies with the human dimension. It's inescapable. Some companies are going to delay it and will pay the price.
Yeah.
Some companies are going to do the technology and upgrade and human upgrade simultaneously.
Yeah.
And they're going to flourish. Then from that perspective, AI, as it questions humanity and challenges humanity, it should move us to be more humans, because we have now competition at the human dimension.
Yeah.
Then when somebody competes with you at your humanity, you cannot compete against them in their efficiency. The worst we can do competing against AI is compete on their AI terms, which is efficiency. We're going to lose. Then how do you compete with AI? First of all, by using it properly, ethically, but also by being so human that AI cannot take your place.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense now that, I don't think I originally resonated so strongly with this idea of the human upgrade, but really the way you're framing this is that it's the value of just humanity in general is going to be upgraded because of AI. It is just it takes an interesting shift in perspective to really be able to see that. And it's something I'm glimpsing more and more, but like you just said, they're going to beat us on efficiency, but they can't beat us on being human.
No. By the way, yes, humanity is going to become more valuable, but I don't believe that in this case adaptability is going to become organic or happen by itself because of the particular challenge of AI. It really infringes on what we are as humans. This time, the adaptability to the new era will have to be intentional, companies will have to invest in the human dimension.
Yeah.
You think that, we are seeing this with people who are not laid off and they stay in the company. Companies believe that they're going to be happy and fulfilled. After all, they kept their desk, they log in, and maybe they got a higher salary. And what we are seeing is that for the first 3 months, they are more motivated, they're happy, and they try to prove their value because they stayed. After 3 months, they take a nosedive into what we call survival remorse.
Yeah.
And then to the question, as AI continues to grow, the next question becomes, am I going to be next? And if companies during layoff don't create at the same time a program for those who stay in the company, they are going to see that those who stay are the most unhappy people they ever had. And they're going to wonder, why is this happening? We give them the best technology. They have a job. And unless they take care of the people at the human dimension, that they give them the strength and they give them purpose, the backlash is going to be enormous.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say take care of people, it's not just pay their salary while there isn't work to do. It's invest in the skills that they're going to need to be fulfilled, to be happy human beings.
The first thing they need to give them is their strengths and value them. I want to do something for the people listening because I've been talking about strength with you. I want to tell people how to get their strengths. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Then if you take your phone and you text the word positive to 33777, as easy as that. Positive to 33777, you're going to receive a chart with the 24 strengths of positive psychology and a couple of questions about how to determine your top 5. And I'm going to give you 3 exercises by which, knowing your strengths, move your fulfillment from 9 to 18%, like I mentioned before. For me, I want everybody listening to own the top 5 strengths. Very easy. Then I created this system where just by texting, you get them back.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. So I couldn't help but think about, why I had you here just to ask some questions about AI and how we create meaning as human beings, right? I think this is relevant to your work. And, I just did a little bit of research, funny enough, using AI in part to dig up some of this stuff. But if you look back, 1,000 years ago in medieval Europe, a meaningful life, if you were able to survey somebody, meaningful life might be one of religious devotion and working towards salvation. In the Renaissance, it moved towards learning and virtue and contribution. And then, by 1900, you started hearing work in there, tied to making progress at work, and then contribution in science. And 1980 became self-fulfillment. And, and then now it's probably even more of that. And there's sort of this cultural plurality, which, it helps you see things from different points of view that we couldn't before. What do you think AI is going to have as far as an impact on how society defines meaning as a human being?
Being human.
Tell me more.
Then I love how you went through history, intellectual history, about at some point was devotion, at some point was knowledge, at some point was efficiency. Freud said it work and love. The currency of humanity for the future is being human. Preserving humanity itself, meaning feelings and emotions. It's going to be the era of feeling and emotions. We will need also intellectuality, but to be honest with you, we are maybe the first humanity without the truth. Truth today doesn't exist. Truth is completely relative. We are in the most radicalized humanity ever, where whoever shouts stronger. You can stand for anything today. You can stand for the earth is flat. You can stand for we are whatever you stand for, as long as you stand for, is valid.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the world we live in. And you cannot fight against it because basically it's a world of rhetoric. I am Jewish. Then I am one of the biggest victims of all that, and I don't want to get into politics, into all that I've been made into, and I cannot say anything against because it's basically everything your word against mine. Then we are in a humanity that is seeking for truth more than ever. And that's something we need to deal with. And I think it's going to happen. I think that history is a pendulum, and we are going to go back at some point to the importance of truth and scientific knowledge. Okay, we'll go there. But with reference to the AI revolution, in particular, is going to be about emotions.
Yeah.
Because AI will try, okay, like I said, people are going to marry robots. That's going to be a question of law and ethics. Can you marry a robot? Okay, that you're going to inherit all your fortune. That I think 50 years from now is going to be a real question. Then it's going to come to the point: what are emotions? What are true emotions? What are human emotions?
Yeah.
Okay, and I think, like I said, you're going to be saying thank you to a empty car.
Mm-hmm.
Then what is to be thankful anymore? What is to be what is to be compassionate anymore? The big question is going to be the question of who own emotions, what is genuine. 2023 or 24, Merriam-Webster, they always choose the word of the year. They have a group of scholars, and they go through what words were searched in Google. And in 2024 or 2023, I don't remember exactly, the word of the year was authentic. Was the word more search?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's going to be the search of the future. Before this millennium, the beginning of the millennium was about fulfillment, spiritual fulfillment. Now it's going to be about authenticity.
Yeah. I think it's funny because when I asked that question, I just want to harken back to this. You talked about that paradox, and I think you so just by saying humanity is going to be how AI helps us define meaning. It was such a paradox. I was in that paradox in that moment that it was like I couldn't even hear what you said. I was like, wait, what does that mean? And it took me a second, but I realized that I'm sort of, I'm dealing with that paradox right now, is that meaning is going to be about being authentically human. That is going to be the question.
In the book, there is a section where I discuss there's a chapter on leadership. Okay. And there is a section where, leaders ask me what to be. And the answer I give them is be human. Yeah. And they usually look at me perplexed. Yeah. Then I developed in the chapter what that means and strategies. Okay. But yes, that's my answer, be human. What people are looking from you now is humanity. Yeah. That's what they look, not efficiency.
So humanity. The book is not out at this point. It'll be out in January. And
yes.
So it'll be out by the time people are hearing this. I wonder, is there anything in the book because that's going to be, like you said, the question, what does it mean to be authentically human? Is there any guidance in the book on how to guide people towards that? Or
the entire book is that. That's the entire book.
Wonderful.
The book is the application of the principles of positive psychology to the challenge of new technology. And positive psychology is the science of flourishing, motivation, resilience, and happiness. That's what positive psychology is. Then it is everything I've been learning of positive psychology I have applied to the challenge of AI. Clearly, companies who are not on AI can use the book too, because they want more resilient and they want motivated and loyal teams and organizations. But I talk a lot about AI and how to deal with it. That's what the book is, the entire book.
Yeah. What is the probably the number one piece of criticism that you run into in sort of beginning to promote the book and podcasts you've run into against your sort of message here?
Look, the biggest problem here in this topic is silos.
Yeah.
The IT people don't want to hear what they have to say. Some do. I talk with some IT people, they tell me that's exactly what I need to hear. And what my colleagues need to hear. Others say to me, let's the HR department, let's the leader deal with us, with that. We only solve technical problems. And the reality is that in today's workplace, there are no compartments. We are all interconnected. Okay. And teams of people. One thing that there is a group on teams during the AI era.
Yeah.
And there I quote a very, two projects which are very well known by Google, Project Aristotle and Project Oxygen. The Project Oxygen is less known. And the Project Oxygen by Google, they tried to determine what made the best manager.
Yeah.
And they really did an exhaustive, it's an unbelievable piece of research, and they came back all to one thing. which was mentoring.
Wow. Okay.
That's the number one thing that made a manager successful, to mentor others.
Yeah.
Then everybody's mentoring on teams. What they also found in the Project Oxygen is that teams made of brilliant people, the most brilliant people, compared to teams of not brilliant people, and the team that had less brilliant people did better.
Yeah.
And they asked the question why. And they found one factor that would make a team better, even if they don't have the most brilliant people. And that one factor is called psychological safety.
Yeah.
Teams where people were valued and were allowed to make mistakes and were allowed to ask questions without the fear of consequences did exponentially better than teams without psychological safety made of the greatest talents in the company.
Yeah.
IT people usually are very low on psychological safety because it's all about efficiency and finding solutions and correcting errors.
Mm.
Then they usually don't want to hear so much at the human side.
Yeah.
Okay. It makes sense. Then that's where I'm finding a little bit of, I wouldn't say pushback. It's like, you speak a language, I speak another language. Let me do what I need to do.
Yeah.
But if they have teams of IT people without psychological safety, then they're not going to be as good as they could be.
Dr. Borodowski, of course, we'll have the links to the book and the show notes and the number folks can text purpose to. But what is something you want to leave the audience with as we wrap our conversation?
Then chapter 3 of the book are the 6 myths, devastating myths that ruin companies, that we need to get rid of. And I want to show one of them. We need to transition from fixing to nourishing.
Yes. Yeah.
We were taught from children that excellence comes out of fixing what's wrong. And this happened at sports, universities, and happen today at jobs. Instead of nourishing people to be the best they could according to the skills and according to their strengths and making them the best version of themselves, usually the system focus on what is wrong with you, where you are at fault, what you have not achieved, and let's zoom on that. And we know from studies that this does the opposite of what is intended to. At more nourishing, more respecting who the person is, what happened, the person feels energized, elevated, and begins correcting what we wanted them to correct. From the point of view of strengths. Then that's what principle I teach always who are going to company and work with them on moving from the fixing mentality to the nourishing mentality. The effect of that paradigm shift are tremendous. 2 different cultures emerge.
I can only imagine that is, and that's one of the questions we didn't get to and I think you did a wonderful job explaining it. And I think that your work here is a different framing of what we're kind of all experiencing. And I think it's really, really important for us to look at this because there is something that I've come to. And one of the reasons that really things that drew me to your work was this idea of the thing that people aren't talking about is that AI is going to highlight essentially what it means to be human. You kind of helped give me the language for that. And I think that there's all kinds of fear mongering out there about what that's going to look like. And I think it will be difficult, but I think the good part is that we're going to really do a deep dive on what it means to be human.
It's a great opportunity from that perspective.
Yeah. But I really, I thank you for your time today and your wisdom. And I cannot wait to read the book. I'm going to, I've already ordered it. I'm going to make sure that I'll read it right away and make sure I give a review for it.
It's coming in January. Those who want to know when it comes out, the best way to do it is to go to my website. The website is, as it should, positive AB, the word positive AB for alfredoborodowski.com. And, it's through the website when it comes out, you can get a copy. I'm going to make it, by the way, on the e-version is going to be very, very accessible. I mean, I want this to reach as many people as possible.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, and I encourage everybody to check out this book.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for the great questions.
Of course. If this episode resonated with you, Let's stay with you for a minute. We covered a lot in this episode: character, strengths, purpose, leadership in uncertainty, psychological safety, workplace culture, and the deeper question of what it means to remain fully human in an age increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence. Dr. Borodowski challenged us to think beyond talent and efficiency. He reminded us that the future will not belong only to the fastest systems or the most advanced tools. It will belong to the people and organizations that know how to lead with humanity, to build purpose, and to nourish what is best in people. If you want to connect with Dr. Borodowski, learn more about his work, or access resources discussed in this episode, you can access these key links. His website is positiveab.com, and his book, The Human Upgrade, is available through Dr. Borodowski's website at positiveab.com. For a free strengths resource, text positive, the word positive, to 33777, and you'll receive a chart of the 24 character strengths of positive psychology, guidance for identifying your top 5 strengths, and exercises that help you apply them. Now, if this episode gave you something to think about, something to reflect on, or language for a shift that you've been sensing, subscribe to the show at youtube.com/@thepersonalsuccesspodcast. And if someone in your life is navigating leadership, uncertainty, purpose, or the human side of change, send them this episode. Until next time, keep defining success on your own terms.